Alright, hello, citizens of the Nigelverse. It is Nigel once again. And so, right now, in the modern day and age, pro wrestling is seemingly as hot as it's ever been. And through a combination of WWE being cool again, AEW, what they're doing, and the working relationship between WWE and TNA, plus, of course, the good old fashioned indies. But what if I told you it wasn't always like that? Excuse me. In fact, what if I told you there was a point in time where the business was almost on a bit of a downturn. But, excuse me, there were two companies, through their own means, who were set to try to rectify that, and it led to them going to war. Or considered one of the most successful periods is in pro wrestling history. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the Monday Night Wars. So, this is episode 1 of the Monday Night Wars. Episode 2 is coming out later on this week. This was supposed to come out last week, but things happen, of course. Yeah. So, I'm excited to be able to dive into the Monday Night Wars. Unfortunately, wasn't there to live, but hearing all the buzz around it from the people who were there, who experienced it in real time, has been fascinating. So, what were WCW up to? What happened when they went to war, and who exactly won the war? Let's find out. So, episode 1 here. There's gonna be 5 episodes in total. Episode 1 is gonna be tackling 1995 and 1996. Episode 2 is gonna be tackling 1997. Episode 3 is gonna be tackling 1998. Episode 4 is gonna be tackling 1999, and the last and final episode, episode 5, is gonna be tackling both 2000 and 2001. Now, the reason I did that is because there's 5 weeks in July, and so we can have this done before July ends, hopefully. Yeah, but also because 1995, I have WCW, who didn't debut Monday Nitro until pretty late into 1995, and they didn't have a whole lot of time within 1995. At least compared to when they would have full years in 1996, 1997, 1998, 1999, and 2000, and the same with 2001, except kind of the opposite, as WCW was closing its doors. So, because they're kind of incomplete, at least in that regard, and they're not complete years, I decided to lump them together in those regards. But without further ado, who I am excited, so let's get right into it. So here we have the ratings. So how this analysis is going to work is that we have the ratings here. We have the ratings from week to week. WWF Monday Night Raw on the left, WCW Monday Nitro on the right. Now this is courtesy of of a couple different sources. One of them being Pro Wrestling Fandom. But you'll see some NAs here. Those are weeks where it went uncontested, or the data either one or one of the shows didn't air, or the data was hard to find, and this is the TV ratings for each week. And then we have our average down here. We have the WF average and WCW average. So we're gonna take a little stroll through. I'm probably not gonna read off every single number because there is a lot of them, but we are going to note some significant changes, if any, or some significant differences between Monday Night Raw and Monday Nitro. And here we have both the moments and storylines in WF. I tried to include at least 5. I've sadly only had 4 here. And we have some MVPs for both sides. Right, so without further ado, ratings first. So here on September 4th of 1995 was the first episode of Monday Nitro. And WF, excuse me, did not air that week. Monday Night Raw did not air. It's also worth mentioning this was when Monday Night Raw is pre-taped. Nowadays, of course, it's live with some exceptions, but this is when it was pre-taped. And that's something that will come up later on in the Monday Night Wars. But you see, for this first episode, you see for the first episode, Monday Nitro drew a 2.5 in the ratings. And then for the next couple weeks, you see he Raw, Nitro not quite able to beat Raw in the ratings until this part, where her Monday Nitro finally beats Monday Night Raw with Monday Nitro pulling a 2.7. Excuse me. Meanwhile, WWF pulling a 1.9. It's also worth mentioning, this is during the New Generation era. Really, 1995 and to an extent 1996 were pretty rough years for the business. I bring that up to kind of maybe explain some of these ratings, but you see them almost neck and neck, even tied a couple weeks as you see here, including in the October 2nd episode where they each got 2.5, and then the October 9th episode where they received 2.6, and you can see them getting legs up on each other. Raw beats Monday Nitro here, Monday Nitro beats Raw here, and I don't believe we're quite at the 83 weeks the 83 weeks streak of WCW beating Monday Night Raw just yet, so we see like I said, back and forth. This week WCW didn't air, or the data they couldn't find. Same with WWF here, you kind of see them going back and forth between the ratings, and I believe this may be beginning of the 83 weeks period where actually right here where WCW was beating Monday Night Raw in the ratings, and it's probably not a coincidence that this was around the time of the fallout from WCW Bash at the Beach in 1996 with the formation of the NWO. You can see here her WCW just annihilating Monday Night Raw. There are a couple more weeks where one contested and Raw didn't have the data. Didn't have the data or didn't air for 2 weeks in a row. You can even see Raw. They increase at times, but they also start to dip down at points. Kind of going up and down. Meanwhile, WCW, who also going up and down for the most part, but maintaining their lead over Monday Night Raw. So going down to the average here. Excuse me. The average rating, based on my calculations, which I just did. The average. I did the average within the spreadsheet here of all of the weeks, and I guess it automatically took out the NAs, which is good. So WWF's average between both 1995 and 1996 are about a 2.6. Excuse me. And because we're lumping in 1995 and 1996 with each other, I decided I would also lump in the ratings with each other, not quite separate them. And then meanwhile, as I plug in my laptop, down here, you can see that WCW has about an average rating of a 3.0. For the most part, at this point in the Monday Night Wars, WCW is winning. But what are some significant storylines in the companies at this point in time around 1995 and 1996? So some of the ones I took down for WF, and this isn't every single storyline, but a lot of the ones that A came to mind, and B were some pretty big ones. And we do see the rise of Stone Cold Steve Austin. Of course, Stone Cold Steve Austin came in, and former WCW superstar, or funnily enough, and that's a whole story within itself. But Austin at first started off in WWE as the ringmaster, as the protege of Ted DiBiase, winning the $1 Million Championship, but eventually abandoned it and kind of morphed into a Stone Cold persona, and of course cut that famous Austin 316 promo. After winning the 1996 King of the Ring, in the finals, he beat Jake Roberts, who Jake Roberts was doing of course born again, and so doing that storyline. So Seeing the rise of Austin here, or then and that segues into the rivalry between Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Bret Hart, or where we see the beginning of the double turn between Steve Austin and Bret Hart. Steve Austin did start off as a heel, funnily enough, but eventually Austin became more and more beloved by the fans, and it's very much no nonsense, tough sob. And it's also worth mentioning the new generation, and like I mentioned, probably one of the worst eras in WWF history. I'd argue probably the worst era in WWF history. But Austin, being a much different character than like the goofy day job gimmicks, was definitely a breath of fresh air, which I think helped it stand out a lot more. So Austin became more beloved by the faces. And meanwhile, while I plug in my laptop again, Bret Hart became more aggressive. Hung on to his Canadian fans and everything, but the American fans, he became a lot more hostile towards. And this is around the time where they start to kind of blur the lines between kayfabe and reality. Excuse me, including Hart outing Vince McMahon as kind of the chairman and everything. This is back when Vince McMahon was still a color commentator, didn't really become outed as the chairman, and just yet had slowly transitioning into it, and definitely we're not quite at the Mr. McMahon character just yet. That's the character we all know and love, and kind of hate in hindsight with some of the stuff that's come out. Another storyline of significance that I noted was The Undertaker versus Diesel. Well, it's not often you see yourself in a casket, but of course they faced off at WrestleMania 12. And then the rivalry between Shawn Michaels versus Bret Hart, including the Iron Man match, the first ever 60-minute Iron Man match between Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart. A match that I know I'll review someday, likely around WrestleMania season, but I'm gonna have to set aside that hour to watch the match, of course. Then there's King Mabel. I said notable storylines. I didn't necessarily say good ones. Yes, Mabel had won the 1995 King of the Ring in a tournament that also featured the likes of Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker. One of these things is not like the other. One of these things just doesn't belong. Mabel. Well, a man known for being very large, but also very reckless in the ring, including him injuring the Undertaker's face during a botch where he accidentally crushed the Undertaker's orbital bone, which led to Undertaker wearing that really cool Phantom of the Opera mask. But pop the King of the Ring on this guy. Put him in the main event of SummerSlam against Diesel. Yay! And Diesel got hurt in that match as well. Excuse me. So, what can you do? But then next up is Razor Ramon versus Goldust. A storyline that kind of ages poorly in hindsight. Goldust and Razor are duking it out throughout, especially 1996 over the Intercontinental Championship, including some stuff that may offend members of the LGBTQ community nowadays. Definitely different times back then, and you can see even with that storyline that would be kind of going more into that like edgy, kind of risque territory, or kind of a precursor of things to come when it comes to the Attitude Era. But of course, in the Monday Night Wars, not quite there yet. And the last one that I put down for notable is the debut of Rocky Maivia. Which his name is an amalgamation of his father, of course, Rocky Johnson, Soulman Rocky Johnson, and his grandfather, High Chief Peter Maivia. So Rocky Maivia makes his debut at the 1995, or I believe 1996 Survivor Series. 1996 Survivor Series. He's and ends up winning it for his team. And of course he started off as the white meat blue chipper babyface, but the people didn't like it that much, chanting things like "Die Rocky Die" and everything. And so when will this little pebble become the Rock? You'll have to stick with the Monday Night Wars in order to find out. But let's see what WCW was up to at this time. So, the notable storylines that I have. As a finish off my Sprite here, which is probably why I'm burping so much. My apologies, but a store, but the storylines I have of significance majorly for WCW, that I can think of and that I could find, and was of course the Dungeon of Doom versus the Alliance and Hulkamania, or I think that should be a slash, as they didn't fight each other; they were one and the same. So, the Dungeon of Doom, very wacky storyline, very wacky stable, which included the likes of Kevin Sullivan, aka the Taskmaster, or King Curtis Ikea, the Giants, the future Big Show, the Zodiac, formerly Bruce the Barber Beefcake, not quite the Booty Man just yet, but him and Post Butcher as well, Bruce Barber, Beefcake. What? And man, like, you talk about savage. Bruce Beefcake and Hulk Hogan, at least in kayfabe, have had a very up and down relationship. And speaking of which, it's a group designed to put an end to Hulkamania, as the name would suggest. And were they kind of successful in doing so? Perhaps, because the next storyline that of significance that I've put down is the formation of the NWO. Excuse me, I'm gonna get into it more when I do my review of Bash of the Beach 1996. That's coming out later on tonight. But of course, there's Hulk Hogan and turned his back on the red and yellow, turned his back on the WCW fans, joined up with the outsiders, that being Kevin Nash and Scott Hall, revealed himself as the third man at WCW Bash of the Beach 1996. And formed the New World Organization at first. Now, contrary to popular belief, he did say New World Organization, but he also did mention it's a New World Order. So I guess both. But yeah, so we see the formation of the NWO. Eventually, we would see a lot more people joining up the NWO throughout the years, for better or for worse, including Eric Bischoff being revealed as the leader in charge. Everything kind of interesting parallel between the two. Eric Bischoff does have Vince McMahon beat by a little bit. But Eric Bischoff being that heel authority figure, being the bankroller, being the man in charge of the NWO. Excuse me. So good on you, Eric, for being Vince to the punch. But as Vince McMahon and apparently said, I don't think I ever heard him say it, but as he apparently said, whoever laughs last laughs best, I guess. But the next thing we have, and I capitalize it because it's a proper noun, that being Crow Sting. So at first there was speculation of if Sting was going to join the NWO. Oh, Sting, the super colorful, beloved babyface, was he going to join up with the NWO? A lot of people seem to think so, including a lot of the people in the back within kayfabe, of course. So Sting secluded himself, distanced himself from his friends who were accusing him of joining. There was even a fake Sting for a little while who was part of the NWO, but it obviously wasn't the real Sting. So for the next 18 months into 1997, where we'll go into more detail about it here within episode 2, Sting sat in the rafters, being the eye of justice, looking down upon the NWO. Eventually waiting for his moment to strike and take down the NWO. So would he be successful? You'll have to stick with the Monday Night Wars, of course. And finally, Lex Luger, her jumping ship from WCW to the WWF, and this was a week after her, I believe, SummerSlam 1995, where Lex Luger, her left WWE, showed up in WCW, or I should say WF, that is, and showed up in WCW. It was a very unexpected moment, of Lex Luger so soon after having been on WWF TV, now finding himself in WCW the very next week on Nitro, and I believe it was the debut episode of Nitro where he appeared. So, definitely a hell of a statement to make on your debut episode. Then Lex Luger would continue to be in WCW, I believe pretty much up until it closed. It was, but a pretty major moment there. It's something that doesn't happen too often, but when it does, it's always surprising and always adds to a lot of interest. A more modern equivalent I can think of is the time where WWE accidentally didn't upgrade Malachi Black's contract, so he showed up in AEW pretty soon after, where people thought they would at least have to wait 90 days to see Malachi Black in AEW. Nope, he showed up within the 30 days. He only had a 30-day non-compete clause in 791. In fact, I think he showed up sooner than that in AEW. I know it was pretty short after his exit from WWE, but yeah, so pretty major moment there. All right, now getting into some of the MVPs that I've taken down for both WWE and WCW. That's what I meant to do. The first one being the Undertaker. Sadly, for better or for worse, WWE, for better or for worse, I should say, Undertaker always a reliable hand, and for better because he gave the fans a lot of memorable moments featuring the dead man, but for worse because Undertaker oftentimes had to put over the brand new giant WWE. He did during the New Generation. He did somewhat during the Attitude Era. He did it during the Ruthless Aggression Era. He kind of did in the PG era. Undertaker having to put over the big bad monster. Her two mixed results, but the Undertaker still a reliable hand in that regard as well. Then, of course, being the next up being Shawn Michaels, because of course, or in fact, admittedly, throughout the Monday Night Wars, you're gonna see a lot of these names repeat. But Shawn Michaels, of course, the Heartbreak Kid, the Showstopper, the biggest backstage politician indeed. But he was so talented, he was able to get away with it. But then next up, Bret Hart, for a lot of the aforementioned reason, and seeing the evolution of his character work as he became more aggressive and leaned more towards heel, and Stone Cold Steve Austin, same for aforementioned reason, and transitioning into more of that not quite full on face, but more in that anti-hero role that he fits so well. Them and being major parts of WWF programming going forward, and then Razor Ramon especially within the IC title picture. Of course, he and Shawn Michaels had their rivalry, not quite in 1995, but in 1994 over who the real Intercontinental Champion is. They had a rematch at SummerSlam because something had to save the card. At SummerSlam 1995, that is putting over the 1-2-3 Kid, having his kind of alliance and everything with the Kid, of course. But now we move into the WCW MVPs. He's the first one being Hulk Hogan, and the next one, of course, being the NWO. Kind of for a lot of the same reasons. Hulk Hogan came in, was the Renya, did really great business for WCW, but as the Black and White, as the leader of the NWO, that's where things definitely got interesting. And seeing Hogan's character, seeing Hogan as a heel for the first time since I believe since the 70s. Hulk Hogan had started off as a heel back, I believe, when he was Sterling Golden, and now being a heel once again, and being a very interesting and captivating character, no longer being for the fans, and of course the NWO recruiting a lot of members, a few too many, but again, not quite there yet. But next up, Sting, even though Sting really didn't do anything but sit in the Raptors, but sometimes less is more, and the story of Sting distancing himself of becoming the Crow, morphing into the Crow, being the Eye of Justice, waiting as the fans waited with bated breath for the day that he would finally confront Hollywood Hogan, and definitely made for some interesting TV there. And then DDP, because it's DDP, Diamond Dallas Page, always a reliable hand, and of course Ric Flair, because it's Ric Flair. This was after Ric Flair had came back to actually he had been back in WCW for a while, but Ric Flair, part of the Four Horsemen, would also find himself tangled up with the NWO as well. But we'll get to that later on down the line. So, that is episode 1 of the Monday Night War. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Sorry, it is late, of course, but I hope you still enjoyed. If you did, please do me a favor: like, comment, subscribe, share with your friends, and turn on post notifications so you know every time I upload a video, so you can see when it drops. And let me know in the comments your thoughts. Are you excited for the Monday Night Wars? Or do you like this format? Do you think I should change it up? Any suggestions for that? Let me know. Thank you all so much for watching, but don't touch that dial, because later on tonight is going to be my review of the Outsiders and Hulk Hogan versus Team WCW at WCW's Bash of the Beach 1996. But until then, thank you all so much for watching. I will see you guys later. Peace.